Banten strategi timbal.
Cisauk, sorry.
Oh iya.
Happy anniversary.
Yang lain kagak.
Ladies and gentlemen, side government has continuously glorified their benefit, in which the moment that people actually is able to access like bad emotions, that they're going to actually regain their strength, and that's the moment in which they are going to get like stronger, etc., etc. Without necessarily giving to you any kind of comparative as to how these people can actually combat things like sadness to begin with, right? Their side of the house have never explained to you as to how people, the moment that they're in a very vulnerable state, they're actually able to solve their own problem, and the moment in which they don't necessarily have any kind of like support system, how then they will actually like be able to solve their own problem. We say that our side of the house can solve these problems much better. You should vote for side opposition. So with that being said, I have 2 points that I'm going to talk about in my speech. Firstly, in regards to like growing as an individual, and then second of all, in regards to like evaluation and like how individual will then suddenly make how individuals make decisions under our side of the house, right? So let's actually move on to the first thing. In regards to like growth, your growth as an individual, side government has continuously said to you that the moment you grow as an individual, it's exactly the moment in which you can actually access bad feelings and you can actually survive from that without necessarily like giving to you any kind of characterization as to how it actually feels for you to be depressed, for example. We said that there's always going to be 2 kinds of scenarios. Firstly, in which you are going to survive from these kinds of things. We say that it's very less likely for you to actually survive from these things exactly because it's very hard, because you have to understand that the moment you are feeling like depressed, for example, it's like you don't necessarily it's exactly what like side opposition government said, right? You're feeling like extremely alone and you feel like you're the only person in the world with like that kind of problem. They only said to you that the moment other people actually like expose like their problem, for example, that's the moment in which they're going to like gain things like relatability, right? We say that, well then, what is it that you're going to have from that? You're only going to see that, oh yeah, other people are having the same problem without necessarily giving to you any kind of motivation as to how you're going to like solve the problem. We say that under our side of the house, what's going to happen is that you're going to see that other people are able to survive from this and that you are able to actually get away from like the current hole from like the current problem that you're actually having. We say that the positivity under our side of the house is it's not simply like cat pictures with like a bunch of love in the background saying ooh ooh. It can also be your story. It can also be like your story of like you suffering through like depression, for example, and you getting out from these kinds of things. We say that these are exactly the kind of positive vibe that we have under our side of the house. But let's say like but we say that these kinds of these kinds of mechanisms are exactly the kinds that does not exist under side government. But before moving on to my next point, yes.
The narrative of positive vibes usually says that you can go through it all. How does just saying that word give you a guidance at the end of the day to solve your problems?
We said that there's also like multiple actors that are going to give you these kinds of things, right? It can be in like a form of like an Instagram story, for example, but this can also be in a form of like your closest friends. This can also be in like a form of like your closest family, for example. We said that these kinds of things are exactly the things that are going to affect you the most the moment that you are going through things like depression, for example. We say another thing that we also have to understand is the moment you do feel like extremely depressed, you're going to have a lot of questions about yourself, right? You're going to blame yourself for the problem that you are actually having. The moment that I lose in a debate and competition, obviously I'm going to continuously like put the blame on myself, saying that I'm the one who's burdening Dhanny, for example. These are exactly the kinds of things that you experience the moment that you do feel depressed, right? We said that because of that, you need an answer towards these problems. Under side government, the answer that you're going to get is only, oh, it's your fault, you have to fix it. Under our side of the house, at least there's going to be like some kind of encouragement saying that no, you actually did good. We say that these are exactly the kind of things that are able to like make you gain the spirit to actually like bounce back from like your current problem. We say that this is exactly what makes you a better adult. We say that our side of the house solves this problem. But now moving on to the second argument in regards to like evaluation of like the actions that you're actually going to do, right? Notice how side government have never actually explained to you what are the kind of actions that need evaluation to begin with, right? My first speaker has already given to you like explanation as to why this is a form of a norm, right? And how norms actually work, how it actually like interact with other norms, and how this only applies in certain kinds of conditions. Right? We say that obviously in moments in which like your mom died, for example, obviously we are going to like express some kind of grievance, but we say that the moment you do radiate positivity in these kinds of events, we say that it's perfectly fine. Because why is that? Because you do need these kinds of support, right? But then but let's actually talk about like the actions that side government continues to talk about in this debate. They say that all like decisions that are being made by these people have to continuously be evaluated. We then question as to why this cannot happen under our side of the house. We question what are the decisions that do need evaluation, right? Because we say that if the decision is inherently bad, like for example, if you do want to use drugs, like obviously we're not going to be like that dumb to the point where we're just going to say like, oh yeah, you can snort that thing. We say that those kinds of things are obviously not going to happen, right? We say that positivity does not lead to these kinds of things. We say that if the decisions that you're going to make is inherently that bad, obviously there are going to be multiple criticisms going through these kinds of decision, right? If you are in fact a good friend, then obviously you're going to tell your friend to not go to like alcohol, to not like turn to alcohol, for example. We say that those are exactly the things that we actually support under our side of the house. What is it that closing opposition have actually proven to you in this debate? Firstly, we've proven to you as to why this is actually a norm, and as to why it's something that is not and as to why it only like applies on like certain times, and as to and why this eventually can like lead to like a better individual at the end of the day. We say that everything that comes from side government is lacking of explanation. It's not exclusive. It's dependent on all of the reasonings that they say, which is not even true. You should side with opposition.
Masuk UGM ya.
Thank you, debaters of the grand final round. Judges, you may use the room across this one. So for those who still want to know who's the winner and all, your feet